Soon. So ask the question, Ammaji.
Define I? Who am I to define your I? Eh? You define your I. I'll define my I. In fact, every life form defines their own I. They don't need a generic definition. They don't need anybody to define I for them. We all have defined our own I's. I. It's like we tell people, so, do you know who I am? If somebody tries to bully you, do you know who you're talking to? Because I have defined myself. We all define our I. But it's interesting, even though we define our I, if people ask me, we would love to have some public talks, Vedanta public talks. And if I give a classical, title, who am I? Just give a title. And there will be at least 200 people in even a remote township. Hey, who am I? I am asking myself, why are you here? Who am I to know who are you? You know who you are, no? Then why are you coming here for a talk to know who you are? Because even though they define their own I, there is always a self-doubt. Do I really understand myself? Because my wife says, I know you better than you know yourself. I always have self-doubt, whether I have defined myself properly, whether I know myself properly. And I'm right. What I know, what I want myself to have, what I want out of myself, how I want myself to be, and how I perceive myself are very different. I want to see myself as a wonderful person, a happy person, a giver, a loving being, a kind soul. But my own family tells me you are anything but that. Nobody believes when I say, I am really very gentle. You and gentle, they ask. Hey, I am a very, very tender, generous soul. Generosity in you, they ask. So what I think that I am and how the world thinks that I am or sees me as I am, there doesn't seem to be any sync. I always feel misunderstood. And they tell me, my own partner tells me, I understand you better than you understand yourself. And therefore, who am I? How am I defining myself in my life? It's very important. Very, very important. Very important because based on my self-definition, I am going to relate to the world. If I think in terms of distrust, I will see the world as untrustworthy. If I think of myself with a low self-esteem, I am going to see a world as a big threat. If I see myself as a poor person, if I define myself with reference to poverty, then my message to the world will be what? Hey, here comes a beggar. If I define myself as an unhappy person, when I go near anybody, people walk away from me, run away from me because they don't want to relate to me. So how I define myself is very, very critical, not only to myself, but also in my relationships with the world, in my transactions with the other, So here comes a great support, not a great mist or a great fog. Here comes a great, fresh air for us when the scriptures declare Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham न मे द्वेषरागौ न मे लोभमोहौ मदो नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः The fresh air, the relief, the release is when the scriptures, when the Veda gives us her perception of who am I. When the scriptures declare, hey, you are not capable of raga, dvesha. You are not a sinner. You are not a cursed one. You are not a victim. You are none of that which you think you are. Oh, I thought I am a victim of circumstances. I thought I am the most useless human being. My family calls me the ugly duckling. I've defined myself, I, in these manners. Scripture says, no, not at all. Chid Ananda Surupaha Shivaha. Your I, your essence, your truth, your Surupa is nothing but the reflection, the reflected consciousness of the infinite. Being the same consciousness as the infinite, you are free from limitations. You don't need to depend on conditional happiness born of your sense contacts in order to be happy. Your essential nature is Anantatvam, Ananda. You are Shivaha, you are the auspicious one. You are ever auspicious. How can you look at yourself as a papi, a sinner, an inauspicious soul? And here we are then. My perception of myself and this perception of the scriptures of the same I is not the small I. In fact, it is the highest I. Know yourself as the highest self and not this lower self. And so we make here a very big paradigm shift through with the guidance and the learning of Vedantic teachings, an inner shift. I can even add a psychological shift, a paradigm shift. From moving from a thought system which is self-defeating, which declares its identity through the voice of the ego, make a paradigm shift from there to the voice of the divine within you. Make a paradigm shift where a whole thought system is created within the same body, mind, sense complex. And in that new thought system, the divine I, the highest self, is your core, is your backbone. From there, when you create a thought system, that thought system has nothing got to do with the voice of the ego. In fact, it is owning up the voice of God within as opposed to voice of the ego within. So who am I? Becomes a journey into self-inquiry that helps me open up to knowing myself as a highest self versus seeing myself through the eyes of my own little conditional ego.